What's up, Hero Front fam? Just got done wrapping up an amazing episode with my buddy Kerry Steuart. He's a Gulf War veteran who spent 8 years in the Air Force, and he has a BS in business management. Is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher with Yoga Alliance, and he has been retired from the Air Force since 2014. Now, suffering from chronic pain and PTSD since his military days, Kerry understands firsthand the numerous benefits of yoga and meditation for pain reduction and mental clarity. He is now a yoga instructor that recognizes and believes that yoga can cause both physical and mental transformations that result in less pain, reduced PTSD symptoms, and a reduction in stress. What makes Kerry incredible is that he went through a lot of trauma while deployed. He worked himself almost to death, had nothing left in the tank, and needed help. And at that point in time, that could break somebody, right? They're very vulnerable. But Kerry, he did not give up on himself. His wife didn't give up on him. They sold all their belongings. They moved to a much quieter, more peaceful area. And Kerry used yoga, meditation, self-reflection, and nature to help heal his chronic back pain and PTSD. So this talk just really opened up my eyes to the healing power that the mind can unlock. So thank you, Kerry. We had a great talk, great episode, and I know the listeners and the viewers will get a lot out of it. Let's get after it. Hey fam, before we kick this episode off, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Rise and Ride Club. It's a cycling studio in Valpy, right out the back gate of Eggland. I'm going there, my wife's going there. I've neglected my physical health for much too long, and this veteran-owned business has been incredible at whipping me into shape. The energy is so high. The friends that my wife and I are making makes it a very memorable workout. So if you're in the Eggland area, please check out Rise and Ride Club, and I will see you there.
So,
gotcha. And here's an idea I have, and I feel like this is $1 million idea. Mm-hmm. How many times have you bought something and then started seeing commercials for it?
Oh yeah.
Right. I think you should be able to scan your receipt and be freaking get a pass on the commercials. Like you take your phone, you open the app, it's like already purchased, click here. You click it, you scan your receipt, and it's like, cool. Thank you. You don't get commercials for a week.
Yeah,
bro,
leave me alone. Yeah.
That would change the world. Okay. So Kerry Dean Steuart, my man.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I got 3 questions for you just to kick this thing off before we hit the topics.
Okay.
And then I'm going to end with a few questions that my wife had for you.
Okay.
First question. Who is Kerry in one word?
Warrior.
Oh, damn, that was quick. Warrior. Isn't that your brand, Warrior's Ascent?
Well, that's an organization I work for. I collaborate, and I'm a provider for out of Kansas City. So I and we can dive into that later, but I do a lot of workshops for them: yoga, mindfulness, meditation, healthy boundaries, turning conflict into intimacy, Ayurveda, exercise, diet, sleep, a variety of different talks.
Shout out to Casey Moe.
Yeah.
I was stationed at Whiteman near Warrensburg, Missouri. So I love Missouri. My kids were born there.
I've got a fin off a nuke warhead from there. A guy came through Warrior's Ascent and opens his trunk, and he's like, "Hey man, I got something that probably you've never been given before and probably never will again. This came off a nuke warhead from Whiteman." And I'm like, "I'm not going to ask any questions, brother, but thanks."
Bro, you might want to scan that thing with a Geiger counter, make sure it's safe.
I've carried that thing around with me everywhere I go, man. It's super cool. And it's seen some action, man. It's got some nicks and dings in it. So
nice. Yeah, Whiteman's no joke. It has real world missions. They're not advertised, but if you look them up, they do happen. The 2 that I was a part of was Odyssey Dawn and Odyssey Lightning, and that's where the B2 is used in combat. And again, it's not advertised, but it is public knowledge. Yeah. Okay, so Warrior. Why Warrior?
Well, because warriors, they forge their own path. They choose their own destiny, is how I describe it. So you were in the military. I was in the military. Doesn't matter what branch. let's say soldiers follow orders, airmen follow orders. Somebody up the chain has given a directive, a command, an order, and everybody down that follows it, right? We have no choice. We have to follow it. But a warrior, they truly forge their own path. They choose their own destiny. And so what they're looking for is an opportunity, I would say, for social enrichment for themselves. Each and every morning I get up and I ask myself, how can I enrich my life so I can enrich the lives of our community? What can I do for myself to take care of myself? And how have I learned from other relationships, other experiences, and other things in my life that I want to repeat that again, or I want to make small adjustments? It's also being accountable for my actions, brother. I mean, we have so many people that play victimhood all the time. They don't want to be accountable. Being a warrior, you take accountability for your actions, all of them, past, present, and future. And you're not in a rush. You're not always in a hurry, but you're always prepared. You're prepared for whatever scenario could come across. And you think about that: strength, resilience, integrity, honor, pride, all of those. So that is a warrior. We've got so many people in our society that don't know who the hell they are. They don't know what they are. This is who I am. I accept that 100%. Everything about me, I accept it, and I love who it is. Now, it's a challenge. I'm not going to deny that, but I think that's where we need to be. Is we all need to be warriors and find the acceptance of who you are on this planet and how you were born, and love yourself and empower yourself. I can go on, but that's the high level of a warrior.
Have you ever read The Way of the Peaceful Warrior?
No.
Check it out.
I will.
All right. Question number 2. What was your biggest takeaway from your experience in the Gulf War?
Oh man, it gives me chills, brother. Man, it's forgiveness is the challenge. I still struggle with that each and every day. You know, all those lives for all those years, I would say accountability and forgiveness. I mean, I struggle with that every single day of my life, you know, and that's that we still have this today. We have local terrorists that are still shooting, you know, innocent people weekly in America. And it's just, we live in a travesty right now. We're lacking a lot of spiritual enlightenment. So that was my biggest takeaway, is just, man, I struggle with that.
Yeah, no, that is brutal, man. Have you ever heard of the term going postal?
I remember the first experience that when I was off at Air Force Base. I think it was Los Angeles. We were watching you know, because we always had all the different news stations, you know, we skiff, you go in a room, and we're watching like CNN or something. And this guy at the post office, like had worked 20 years or something, went in and started shooting people. And I'll never forget that. I was like, why wouldn't you just quit? That's the thing. Like, if I'm in a toxic relationship, personally and professionally, I just walk away. I say my piece and walk away, but I would never want to cause harm to anybody in my family or anybody in my community. And that's just, I've always intrigued with that. You know, I'm always intrigued with the criminals and the serial killers and how they work, because it's not even in my thought process. I just like, hey, we don't get along. That's cool, man. Move on, but never like violence. And I think that's part of the guilt and shame that goes back to the Gulf War. You know, that we cause so much harm to so many people.
So that going postal, that term is kind of not used anymore, but as we grew up, it was used quite frequently because of that first active shooter event at a post office. And to this day, like, there's a whole movie on it called Going Postal. And that triggered every single active shooter to inspire the next, to this day. And it all started with that. And it's called murder by proxy. So it's like every time there's an active shooter, it's planting the seed and inspiring others out there to do the same.
Was that in California? I'm trying to remember where it was located, or was it in a northern state?
I can't remember either. I just know it was at a post office.
I swear it was California, but I could be wrong. I just remember watching it on the news.
But yeah, Murder by Proxy is a movie, and then Going Postal is one. And yeah, super interesting how we can trace it all the way back to that event.
That one, yeah.
All right. Third question before we hit the topics. What is your proudest Air Force moment?
Man, I've never really thought, because I don't label like a lot of instances of the proudest.
So was there a moment where
I, I would
you
say,
provided a skill or a service to impact the environment in a way that was unique to what you could provide?
well, I don't want to go too in depth, but I will say that we were in Riyadh during the bombing, and it was quite chaotic. And I feel like I was probably one of the most calm people at the time. I sat back and I actually reflected, and I remember somebody yelling at me because it was complete panic mode. We're shutting up the aircraft. They'd locked. We worked hand in hand with civilian engineers, and they had locked these guys in the aircraft. They're opening up the cockpit doors, and I finally said, "Look, let's just everybody take a deep breath. Let's relax. Let's focus, and then let's start delegating tasks to certain people." And it was me and like three other guys that stayed behind to close up the hangar, the skiff, everything, because we had to get back to our villas. And I'll never forget, this guy was trying to close the hangar door, and it fell on him and put a big gash in his head.
Oh, wow.
And it's me and another guy. We're the only ones left, I think, on the airbase at Riyadh. AWACS had already, left. Everybody had already left. And I remember providing first aid care to this guy, taking care of him, and just wondering, when's the next bombing going to occur? Because at that point we didn't know if it was gas. We didn't know, what was in there. So I would say at that time, during that time, a challenging time, I would say I was very calm for a lot of people, and just a sense of relaxation.
How do you think you pulled that off in such a life or death situation?
I think, well, I'm from Oklahoma. I've survived like at least 3 tornadoes, like destroying everything around me. I had a lot of near-death experiences in my life before I was in the military. So I think that, I always appreciate life. I never take it for granted every day, every breath, every step, every heartbeat. I really just like, hey, that could have been me. I relive those moments a lot of times throughout the day and the evenings. So I think analyzing the situation and being as calm as possible and realizing what is it that I can truly control. And at that point it was like, and people are in panic mode. People are pulling out chem suits, and the bags were ripped open, and they're freaking out because now they can't use these chem suits, and we don't have enough chem suits for everybody. And everybody's donning chem suits. And I'm like, I'm good, man. I mean, you know what? We don't have one for me. And the 3 other guys, there's 2 other guys that stayed, the 3 of us that stayed behind, we were just out like in the open. So it was just, I think it's my past. I think once again, I probably had this warrior ethos and mindset for years. I just never labeled it. I never gave myself the opportunity to be enlightened and describe myself as a warrior.
Wow. Thanks for sharing all that, Kerry. I appreciate you, man. And it sounded like, that was a really rough chapter of your life. But I'm thankful that you're here to talk about it now. So you are a unique guy, because most veterans, like I'd say mindfulness and meditation and emotional intelligence is on the up and up for sure in the military. It's talked about more frequently now than ever before, but you're kind of like an early adopter to those philosophies. So I was hoping we could just go over a few of the topics you provided and the benefits of them, like mindfulness, which I have ADD. Like there's certain people who are wired in a way where mindfulness is more of a struggle than it coming naturally. So I was hoping to hear your thoughts on why mindfulness is important, how you exercise it, and how someone like me, who my mind is always racing, how I can practice it more.
Yeah. So like for you, or type A personalities, you've got to know what's going to help you get calm and get relaxed. Like if you came into the yoga studio, and this little kid with ADHD, I run, I jump, I do all this crazy activity, right? Because then once they get all that exerted out, right, then they're able to be calm and relaxed. So there's not a one short stop answer, but you've got to make sure you're getting enough sleep. You got to make sure you're eating right. You're not getting a lot of sugar, a lot of flour, a lot of processed food. All of that affects who you are. 90% of your serotonin, the feel good, hormone, is created in your gut. And so your mind never really shuts down. I think, like for you and so many other people, we've kind of lost what it means just to be alone and be present. The more time you're alone and you get bored, the more creative you become. We have so many distractions. We have our cell phone, right? We have Hulu and Netflix and all these subscriptions, and we want to just be preoccupied all the time. Well, you don't have to worry about that. Your mind really never really shuts down. So to me, allowing myself to be mindful and be present allows me the opportunity to think in clarity. Now, say you sit down to do my 5, 15, 20, 30-minute, hour-long yoga nidra class, right? I always encourage people, if you're coming, have a journal. Because what's going to happen is during this time, thoughts, feelings, and emotions are going to arise. And a lot of times they're the red flags in our life. They're the things in our life that we haven't focused on. So realize if your mind is not shutting down, then you're perfect. You're doing it right, because your mind is not supposed to shut down. If you begin to set an intention, and your intention, whatever it may be, is just to be present, or love, or acceptance, or healing energy, the list goes on and on and on, right? But allow yourself to begin to focus on that intention. Mindfulness is really, it's just two concepts, awareness and acceptance. I struggle with the acceptance aspect. I'm super aware of all the sights, sounds, feelings, thoughts, and emotions that are occurring. I've always been that emotional guy and in tune to the emotions. What I struggle with is acceptance of who I am. And so those are the two key components. And a lot of times that acceptance, you're going to have to find forgiveness. How can I forgive myself? Then I can find acceptance for who I am. And so it's a big buzzword, but I think a lot of times if you find it within your everyday life of what you're doing and allowing yourself not to really multitask, you can really only focus on one thing at a time. I don't know if your wife cooks, but my wife cooks. And do you know when she burns stuff? When walks away.
When you got something in the oven and on the stove and in the microwave.
And you walk away,
right?
You go to get the phone, or you go to do something, blah, 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 blah. That's when you burn the things in your life, is when you walk away and you try to do too much and you're trying to multitask. And then what is that? It's a waste of time, waste of resources. You've got to redo it. That's how it is in our life. If we just would focus on one aspect, one concept at a time, accomplish that one task, then move on to the next. Now, I'm not saying that certain things and certain times in our life, things can pause. You can do one task, let it pause, and then go work on another one. Okay, now I'm ready to come back to this other task now that I've had more clarity and more thought process. But we over organize, I guess, our entire life. We overtask ourselves. We got kids, sports, church, family, friends, all these things. And it's like, just have a simple life and allow yourself to be in the moment. And the key component's the breath. Just a slow, I don't know. What did you do in the Air Force?
I've been aerospace ground equipment on the flight line. I've been an honor guard program manager. So I ran military funeral honors for Missouri, and I am public health.
Okay. So I always go back to the Air Force and the sinusoidal wave. A lot of people that are in electronics, and they understand the sinusoidal wave. Well, that's how your breath should be. It should be a diaphragmatic breath. It's really slow. You get to the top, you pause, you exhale, pause. So the breath for trauma, anxiety, stress, all of that, PTS, is you inhale for 8 seconds, slow, deep breath. You pause for 4, exhale for 8 seconds, and pause and hold for 4. And you begin to cycle through that and do that throughout your day. Like you're sitting at your desk right now, you just take slow, deep breaths. You're not in a rush. You're not in a hurry. You're taking a shower. You're washing your hair. You're in the pool. You're out for a walk. You're driving your car. You're cooking dinner. You're watching TV. Slow, deep breath. Just slow everything down. And that's going to help you to be present, to be mindful, not these short, shallow breaths.
Interesting. And short, shallow breaths are kind of like, when you start feeling panicky and anxiety, that kind of triggers that, right? Yeah. I know I need to like take a chill pill when like I'll get flooded with information and things I need to do all at once. Sometimes it happens a lot in the morning for me. So like I'm at my desk, my phone's ringing, my email's full. do I have a podcast tonight or not? Did I edit that video? Suddenly it's like I'm cramming everything in this little funnel and just trying to shove it in there.
Yeah.
And when that happens now, I just say pause and I write a list out.
That's what I was going to, that's my suggestion is journal your journey all the time and get more organized. And I tell people that, you know, depending on what they've got, if they're retired or they're self-employed or entrepreneur, schedule your day. You know, when you get up in the morning, the time, hey, 30 minutes for mindfulness and meditation, at least, maybe an hour. And then your self-care routine in the morning. And then, you know, what material do you need to read that's going to motivate you? Check out your mission statement. Check out your dreams, your visions, and your goals. And then from there, organize your day. 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to, write it out. And these are the things that I want to get accomplished during these time frames, you know, and journal all that, as well as your thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that on your LinkedIn about how you go about your morning, and it's very structured and there's like an intention behind it. Yeah, why don't you run us through that morning routine and how it has changed your life?
Okay, so the first thing I do, and it depends on the day. So I have fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, you know, I have migraines. So I have a lot of, you know, degenerative disc disease, upper and lower spine. So I've got a lot of things going on. So every day is different. So I may wake up at 5, 5:30, 6, 6:30, who knows? But before I get out of bed, I go through my mindfulness practice. So I lay in bed, and the first thing I do is I start counting my breath. I inhale for at least 8 seconds, pause and hold for 4, exhale for 8 seconds, pause and hold for 4. I start that cycle. Then I have a general observation of what's going on mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I do it like a body scan of how do I feel mentally, physically, spiritually, all of that. And so maybe my neck's a little sore, my back or my legs, or maybe I have like a migraine that's going to onset. Maybe I feel really good, my version of good, and I feel rested and I feel excited. And I'm like, man, I've got a good day ahead of me. I've got all these things I want to accomplish. So I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to be as calm and relaxed for 30 to 45 minutes, focusing on my breath. And from that general observation, I'm going to set my intention. So maybe I have a lot of energy. And so today it's going to be like time-based activities or regulation, because what'll happen is if I feel decent, I'll overdo it. And then for the next 2 days, I'll struggle. So I've got to know what's going on, right? Do I need to be a little bit more patient today, a little bit more calm? And a lot of it, you know, could be of what I've read or what I've looked at or what I've seen, you know, maybe from the day before. So I'm with myself every morning for 30 to 45 minutes. And then I get up, I go to the restroom, I brush my teeth, and then I take the dogs out. Now, depending on what time it is and what's going on, sometimes we'll go for a sunrise hike before we start our day. But then I sit down and I schedule my whole day. Every day is different. So today I've got this truck that I'm doing like accessories. I'm doing a bed liner and the tonneau cover and stuff like that. So I've got certain things that I go out and I work on, and then I pause. I've got, you know, 5 acres that I'm farming. So a lot of times I'm out at the farm at 6:30 in the morning, watering, weeding, checking on the farm, doing everything for a couple of hours. And then I'll come home and try to be home around 11 or noon. But self-care can look like a lot of different things on a lot of different days. So I have this aerial rig behind me, and I try to get in that thing at least twice a day. I try to get in it in the morning and in the evening to help reset the spine, to help be calm, to help stretch, strength, flexibility, resilience. So everybody's situation is different of where they're at. For some people, it may be a swim or a really intense hike. It may be a hot bath, you know, I mean, focusing on your self-care. And once again, that's, to me, it's social enrichment. My nonprofit's mission statement is social enrichment. How can I enrich the lives of my community? But I have to take care of myself first. So that's my morning. And then, you know, I'm going to eat some oatmeal. I'll have a healthy lunch, sometimes HelloFresh for lunch or dinner, depends on what's going on, a good dinner. And then depending on the weather is when we do our evening hike. So a lot of times, like, it's hot right now in Oklahoma, it's like 100 degrees.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
that's wild.
We go out about 8 o'clock, for our hike. Usually I like to be home at 8 o'clock. I take a cold shower, I'll be mindful, meditative. I'll get back in this hammock. And then throughout the day, I journal. So for me, when I'm able to be mindful and meditative, it provides clarity. It's that connection. Like when I'm with nature, to me, it's a connection. Like when I'm in the city, it's really toxic. And all I can think about is, when can I get out of the city? It's so chaotic. People are rude. People are inconsiderate. People are pulling in front of me and slamming on their brakes, and people are honking. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just, this whole environment stresses me out. It's just all this commotion, right? I need to be in rural America for me to think and be calm. And I think that's understanding, what does our environment look like? How do we need to change and adapt our environment? And so my house is clutter free. It's clean. Everything's organized. I light some incense twice a day. I want it as calm as possible. And so, you talked about earlier in the yoga and the music, a lot of times throughout the day, I'll play that music all day long, like Moby Ambient. It's like a 4-hour playlist. I'll put that on, and then when it ends, I'll put it on again. And it just helps provide a space of calmness throughout the day, and really,
yeah, that
reset.
music just hits different. I got to get back into that.
Yeah. And I just have it in the background. It's real low. It's turned down just low, but people walk in, they're like, you got the music going on.
Right. So here's what I'm gathering. You're full of intention, right? Like your
intention drives the scope of any mission, brother. You were in the military. Your intention, what was your intention of that mission? And so if you reframe it and think about, if your intention is unconditional love and acceptance, or non-judgment, right? Acceptance and non-judgment go together. If that's my intention, that's going to drive the scope of my mission each and every day. Your intention drives the scope of any mission.
Wow. No, I love that. Because there's times where, like, I think social media and scrolling and binge eating, and like, there's so many, like you said, there's so many distractions. It's like a slippery slope, you know, and eventually you get to a place where you're not in control at all. You're just in a current, and it's just taking you wherever.
Yeah. And that's why I feel it's important for us to disconnect from that as much as possible. Disconnect from your phone and go to it when you need it. I have no notifications turned on my phone except for a phone call. So, and I don't have any social media on my phone. I only do it from the computer. So LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of that is only done from my computer. My phone is really a tool to text. I have the financial apps on there. But the only notification I get is a phone call. If you send me a message, you send me an email, I don't even get it. And actually, one of my email accounts isn't even on my phone. It's only from my computer. I allow myself to be really disconnected from my devices, that I can control it. It doesn't control me. Because if your phone, if we're having a conversation right now, person to person, and your phone vibrates or beeps, me and you are both wondering, what is that notification? It's distracting us from being present.
Definitely.
Right? And that's what happens in our lives, is we have allowed all these distractions instead of connections. So if I walk, the lake's right here. If I walk down to the lake and I see the fish and the turtles and all the, eagles and blue herrings and everything, I'm connected, right? That's provided me a clarity, a connection. But if I'm on my phone, or if I'm watching Hulu, I'm disconnected. I'm not allowing myself to be connected with who I am. So we're in a society that we've become so disconnected, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that we're actually bankrupt. And that's why we're having a mental health crisis. We don't have great spiritual leaders. We don't. And I'm not talking about a religious affiliate. I'm talking about somebody that guides us on a spiritual path, on your own path, in your own destiny.
Definitely. And, one thing that you are all about, and something that you're super good at and passionate about, is yoga.
You have to spend days with me to really understand yoga. And so when I lead these retreats for Warriors Ascent, we go in and I do yoga that everybody can do. And the reason why is, when I first started doing it, I did a variety of different yoga. And this guy shows up, amputee, was bombed, blind, partially deaf, in a wheelchair with no legs and like one arm, right? So people have to actually move him around from location to location. He's got like the motorized one, but when he came into class, I was like, wow, I've got to redo everything. And that's when I realized, you know what, we've got to refocus this. And so I do yoga nidra in the evening, which is a guided meditation. And in the morning, I do a deep stretch where you hold, supine postures for 5 to 10 minutes. And then our problem in America is that yoga is defined by the beautiful girl with the beautiful hair, the beautiful body with the beautiful clothes that can do all these contortion things. That's not what yoga is, brother. Yoga is going for a hike or a walk or a swim. One of the things that hit me the most.
So it's like the spiritual part of it was removed and sanitized into this new aesthetic look.
Absolutely. And so I talk about it a lot, and I talk about self-care. And last year, this lady went through, and she just, Warriors of Sin, I tell people, the more you put into it, the more you get out. And she was so excited on Thursday. We start on Monday, we end on Friday. She's like, oh my gosh. And she's in the group, and she's like, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I figured out my form of yoga and self-care. And I'm like, okay. She goes, oh my God, these ladies aren't going to like it. I'm like, well, just tell it. She goes, it's deer hunting. I'm away. I don't have my husband. I don't have my kids. I'm in nature. And it's not whether or not I shoot the deer. It's that journey and that opportunity for me just to be alone and scout and not have anything going on. I don't have to do dishes. I don't have to do laundry. I don't have to clean. I don't have to cook. I don't have to do anything. I just get to be in nature. She goes, that's my number one form of yoga. That's my number one form of self-care. So yoga does two things for us each and every day. Yoga lets us know those things in our life that we're doing well, but also the things in our life that we need to work on, that need enhancement. That's why we don't like being alone, and we don't like doing self-care. We don't like doing yoga because we don't want to do the work. We don't want to change. We don't want to grow because it's challenging. Sometimes it's difficult. So yoga can be a variety of different things. It's not just about the mats, but it could be your drive to work, that you're actually just being present and focusing on your breath and being in the moments.
I've never heard it put like that. I've always, heard it as just what we see like on television, here in America. I've never heard it put the way that you're explaining it now.
Yeah. And that's what it is. That's, we've got to retrain who we are and what all these things mean in our life.
So how has yoga changed your life and a lot of like the people who come to you wanting to get into it? Like what have you seen, like the before and after? How does that look?
It saves people's lives. It transforms their life. And I'll get text messages, not every week, but almost every week, from people saying that, your talks, your yoga, your mindfulness, whatever you gave me saved my life. I'd be in a pine box, or you saved my kids, you saved my marriage, you saved, the father, the husband, the brother, the sister, whatever it is.
Did it save you?
Pardon me?
Did it save you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So my journey was 8 years ago. I was mentally, physically, and spiritually bankrupt. I was doing cybersecurity for the USDA, and I'd come home, I'd get on a couch, and I couldn't get up. And I just
drained.
Man, and I'd have panic attacks and anxiety. My wife would take me to Target, and I'd freak out, and I'd get in the aisle, and I'd just sit down on the aisle, and I would just start crying in front of everybody. And just like, or we would go to like any outdoor event, and the walls would close in, and I'm just like freaking out, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so she comes to me one day, and she goes, this isn't what I signed up for. And I was like, oh fuck, she wants a divorce. And she comes to me and she goes, I want you to retire, and I want you to focus on your health and well-being. There's, you're giving 40 hours to work, and there's nothing left. And I was, 45 at the time. And I was like, wow, this is not where I thought I would be at 45. And I told her, I said, cybersecurity, I walk in and I turn in my resignation. They're going to have two big security guys with guns walk over, take my badge, make me turn off my computer, and walk me out the door. I said, so if I go in and resign, I'll be back an hour later. And that's exactly what happened. I said, hey guys, I'm turning in my resignation. Security comes over, takes my badge, makes me lock the computer. I walk away. They escort me out the front door. And I get home. First thing I did was I reached out to my primary care provider and was like, I can't work anymore. And this is in Kansas City. I said, I can't. I'm not in a good position mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so ironically, they signed me up almost immediately to go out to New Jersey for Gulf War testing. So I spent a week out there, and they took a bunch of vials of blood, put me in a box, tested my oxygen, test your balance, your skill, all these different things. Right. And at the end of the week, they set me down and was like, okay, you've got all these symptoms of Gulf War. You know, you've got digestive issues, you've got pain issues, you've got migraines and headaches and dizziness and nausea and flu-like symptoms, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, does this mean you're going to increase my disability? You know, I think at that time I was at like 10%, you know, I've been medically discharged, and they're like, no, we can't afford to do that. There's 300,000 of you guys, and we don't have the money. And I got mad and irate, of course. And I said, well, what do you think the cause is? And they said, immunizations and exposures. You guys got shot with so much stuff, you know, and then we send you over to this environment, and with a lot of, you know, there's no OSHA over there. There's no hazmat over there.
There's a lot of toxic stuff over there, big time.
Yeah. And that was their theory. And they said, well, we suggest biofeedback, Tai Chi, and yoga. Well, I knew what Tai Chi and yoga was, but I'd never done it.
I've never heard a provider recommend that. That's unusual.
Yeah. So I get back, they send me to Leavenworth, hippie doctor, nice looking guy, great, so kind of, you know, silver fox guy, long hair. He's like, hey, I'm here to, you know, do biofeedback. And he's talking to me about mushrooms and acid and smoking dope. And I'm like, is this a test? Like, is he just testing me? You know, because I'm like, well, I don't do any of that stuff. Sit down in the chair, do biofeedback. And it's America's version of meditation and mindfulness. You sit in a chair, they test your pulse, your oxygen, all these things before and then 20 minutes after. Every single time, you know, my heartbeat would go down 10 beats. Every single time. I'm like, this works. I went home and I studied mindfulness and meditation. I dove into it 1,000%. I did it every morning. I did it every day at noon, and I did it every evening. And I would go for hikes and take the dog, and I would just go wherever I could in the toxic city of Kansas City to find a place that was calm and relaxing. If I was at home, I'd light incense, set a diffuser, everything. Dove into that 100%. And if me and you got in a fight, or there was a trigger or something happened, I'm driving down the road, there's road rage, whatever, I'd pull over and I'd just stop in a parking lot, and I would just breathe and meditate and take my time to reset. I'm like, man, this works. There's something about this that works. And so I did that for 6 months. And then I stepped into a yoga studio actually on my street. I just walked up the street with my yoga mat, I sat down, and I didn't do any of the poses right. I mean, it was like a one-on-one session. If anybody goes to a yoga class, your first class, you're sitting in the very back. You're shy, you're intimidated. You're like, I don't want to be seen. I couldn't do any of this stuff right, but I felt great. And the reason why is I was practicing these long, deep breaths. I was practicing my intention. And as I'm moving and flowing, as I inhale, I come up with a slow, deep breath, and I pause. As I exhale, I go down. And I'm doing all this rhythm, and it's like a ballet for me. I walked away feeling so free. And so I decided to do yoga teacher training. I did my 200-hour in Kansas City, my 300-hour in India, and I opened a nonprofit. And I give people what's helped me. That's the easiest thing. When I know how it makes me feel and what really works for me, and doing this for over 300 veterans, 500 veterans, the last 6 years, and getting that response, I know what really, really works. And I know how that path is and what that path looks like. And so yoga has saved my life and hundreds of other people, as well as their family and friends.
It's almost like it rewires your brain.
It does. Yeah. So so synapses follow the same pattern for survival, for efficiency, for effectiveness. And a lot of times if we're stuck in that negative mindset, guilt, shame, anxiety, your brain's going to follow those neurons, those paths. But then when you start finding love and gratitude and acceptance and forgiveness, your brain starts following that path instead. And then it doesn't follow that other path of guilt and shame, of hate as much. Eventually, those are going to fall off. Yoga and mindfulness, though, does one thing scientifically. It shrinks the amygdala. So people with PTS, especially like Gulf War veterans, you know, that's not going to go away. You're going to have days that are better, but it's never going to go away. Things are still going to be triggers for you, whether it's news, TV, movies, whatever it may be, memories. But when you're engaged in mindfulness and meditation, it shrinks the amygdala. And so now your threshold's really low. Like before, it was way up here. I would be that guy that would get out of the car, ready to beat the shit out of somebody because they pulled out in front of me and slammed their brakes. Now I'm more calm and more more centered and more self-regulated. Like I don't get out of the car anymore. Hang on one second.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. I just need to let my dogs in.
No, it's all good. So I have someone waiting for me at work to switch lunch with. I work in the COVID section, and there's only 2 of us, and right now it's a bit wild. So
Your wife's 3 questions.
I'm gonna hit you with those if you're ready for them.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Let's see what she said here. She said, first question, how do you carry out your vision throughout the day?
So we'll go back to the intention. You set your intention. It has to be your mission statement, right? So part of it is a lot of people do not have a mission statement. Your mission statement is your purpose. It's your guide. So set your mission statement and look at it each and every day. Follow that intention. So my nonprofit is social enrichment. And what does that mean? So if I see somebody on the side of the road that's got a flat tire, that means I pull over. Or maybe I'm at Walmart buying groceries and I see the person behind me and I give them a $20 gift card to help them out. There you go.
Is that your mission statement?
Mindfulness, yoga, community. Yeah, that's my nonprofit. Yeah.
Mindfulness, yoga, knowledge, community.
Yeah.
No, so I love that. Like, and I didn't know that, anything about myself for many years in my life. I never thought about what my mission statement is, what brings me joy, what energizes me. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize what those things were. I never paused to think about them.
Yeah. So that, once again, your mission statement and your intention drives the scope of any mission. So that's the answer to number 1. What's number 2?
All right. Angie also asked, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start meditating and go into yoga and just starting that spiritual journey? What's something that they should know ahead of time?
Well, my suggestion is just going to be look at my YouTube Yoga Nidra classes and start there. And then if they want to do the physical part, I would say look at the 30 for 30. It's very important that you find somebody that you can develop a relationship with that doesn't just regurgitate what they've said from somebody else, what they've learned, but a true enlightened yoga instructor. And that may take time in your area, and you may not even have somebody like that in your area. So my suggestion is just you go to my YouTube, check it out, and then have conversations with yoga instructors. Sit down with them and do like an interview and say, look, I have PTS, I have anxiety. I'm looking for like a deep stretch guided meditation. I'm looking for something that's calming. Hey, I've got a type A personality. I need a heated yoga class that's super, super intense. I want you to work my butt off, right? It's kind of knowing who you are and what's going to get you to that point. Now it's a journey and it's a path. Now there's a type of yoga for each and every one of us. And there may be a variety of different types. That's why, I loved my 90-minute classes. So I would do this real intense 60 minutes of super deep, intense, high energy yoga, and then give you about 30 minutes of mindfulness and meditation at the end. And it was just, you get both, the best of both worlds. So it's kind of knowing your needs. And I would say, find a mentor, find somebody that you look up to that's in the yoga community, that's enlightened, and kind of help them do an interview with them and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life. This is where I'm at. I have some physical limitations, or I'm a little bit overweight, or I'm obese, or whatever it may be. Seek the advice of somebody that has been doing it for a while, first of all. But, if anybody has those questions, they can reach out to me by all means as well.
Definitely. So on your YouTube, there's like an intro playlist of some sort that they can go to?
There's a couple. There's a Yoga Nidra playlist. Then there's like just a yoga playlist that has every yoga video I've ever done. And then there's a 30 for 30. And then it's 30 minutes for 30 days. So if you're really into yoga, you can do it more than once a day, right? But it's a physical aspect for 6 days. And then on the 7th day, it's a yoga nidra. It's a guided meditation to where you relax. So I did 30 days of yoga, 30 minutes for 30 days on my yoga.
That's
playlist.
Amazing that you put that out there on YouTube for everyone. That's awesome. And by the way, I'm going to have to do one of your classes.
Yeah.
Like if you do them virtually, hey, let's sign me up and I'll give that user feedback. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So looks like there's
And what's her last question?
Last question is, how do you set up your environment to properly meditate?
Okay, so everything has to be organized and clean. I wouldn't say it's sterile, but you got to get rid of all the clutter mentally, physically, and spiritually out of your life. I wish I had a little container, but when we moved in a van, we sold everything, and I have these little plastic containers. And my wife was traveling, going up to Chicago for the week for work, and she's like, "Hey, everything you own has to fit in 6 of these plastic containers." I said, "What?" "Everything you own has to fit in these 6 of these containers." I said, "What?" She goes, "Everything you owned." It sunk in. We sold our house. We sold everything. Everything we had to do was in this van, right? And everything that I owned had to go in 6 containers. We each got 6 containers. That's all we had. So you guys have collected too many things mentally, physically, and spiritually in your life. You've got to let those go. So you got to get some healthy boundaries, and you've got to set yourself up for success on all levels. So it's a correlation, right? It's one of those things in your life that you've held on to a lot of other things. One of the biggest keys is releasing attachments to success and attachments to failures. When you're hanging on to all of those things, then you can't be mindful and you can't be present. So yes, your environment's very important. Incense, a diffuser, warm, nice lighting, right? Cool lighting, no TV, nice, calm, but it could be out at the park or a hike or somewhere else like that. But you really have got to let all the other things in your life that's distracting you from being present, let them go, and releasing your attachments to success and failures. Those are the 2 keys right there.
Yeah, successes and fail. I mean, we kind of base a lot on ourselves in the military for success and failures. There's a lot of things outlined in those 2 boxes.
Yes.
So I think we're very prone to holding on to each of those things, right?
Yes,
I know I have. I fell into that pitfall many times until, I was just so emotionally exhausted from it. I just said, I gotta care about something else now. Like this emotional roller coaster is just too much.
Yeah.
And so a follow-up question for, like, you literally got rid of all your belongings and you fit everything you had into those totes. How does, like, literally getting rid of all your stuff, like, actually help you become more mindful? Like, is it a psychological thing? Like, just knowing?
It is, because we've held on to so many things, and it's a symbolism. Because once you start doing it materialistically, once you get rid of all the shoes and all the clothes and everything you don't need, like I have 2 weeks worth. So I always wear layers. So I have a t-shirt. I'm an 80s guy. A collared shirt and shorts, right? And then
You're rocking that. You're rocking it.
Chacos and boots, right? So I have 2 weeks worth of clothing. Now, when I go to get rid of this, and I'll replace it with something else. And it was the same thing with the books. Have only the things in your life, personally, professionally, materialistically, spiritually, financially, sexually, all of it, that you really only need. We've accumulated more things because we think it makes us happy. We think it brings us joy, but it doesn't. So you probably only need 2 ink pens, not 10. There's probably 4 or 7 really good books that you can read at a time. And so when we're on the road and we're traveling, I had my container, I had journals, my crayons and pens, everything in this. And if I was at a Goodwill and I found a new book, I had to get rid of that other book. That's what we need to do in our life. How many friends do you really need? 4 or 7 really close people? That's it. That's all you really have time for. Maybe it's just 2. But
Wow.
we think that we need all these extra things in our life, and it's just clutter. And so once you start getting rid of them on one level, then you get rid of them on other levels. And that's also, family people that have been toxic. You've got people in your life, probably you've like, oh, they're blood, I can't get rid of them because they're family. But really, once you get rid of them, you feel free. You feel free, and you don't feel constrained, and you feel like you can move, and you don't have that toxic energy, and you've established healthy boundaries, and you feel like I can move again, I can breathe again. I'm not controlled by this person. I'm independent, and I'm not codependent. So once you do it on one level, physically, the materialistic items, it begins to follow through mentally, spiritually, and all other aspects of your life. But you just got to take that first step of get it all out of your life, and you're going to feel so much better. And only buy the things that are purposeful. Like, we sold our house in Colorado, and the couple that bought it was brother and sister. They wanted everything. They wanted the mattresses, the sheets, the towels, everything. how the house was staged. They wanted everything, and they almost got it all. But once again, that's twice now. It's allowed me the opportunity to buy only the things that are purposeful in my life. And you start fresh and you start new and you start clean. So if you guys went through and sold everything, like one of the most materialistic things I have is a flag that was flown over Congress. I don't know. A lot of people don't get them. They change out the flag every day over the Senate, right? And so when I was medically discharged, my congressman gave me this flag. And that's one of the things that, like, if there was a fire, that's the only thing I would really care about grabbing is this flag, because of what it represents for freedom in America. And that, there's 365 of those flown over the US Capitol every year. And I got one of them when I was discharged. So that's just a huge blessing for me.
Awesome. Dang, Kerry, you're blowing my mind with
Thanks,
just,
brother.
yeah, with just your wisdom, your insight, how you've evolved over time from a veteran in very stressful situations, who you're basically, set to fail because you were just empty. Your tank was empty. And a lot of folks start resorting to drugs and self-destructive behaviors at that point. But, you kept fighting for yourself, showing up for yourself. And now you're kind of showing us that even in dark moments like that, we can come back and fill our spiritual tank again through yoga, mindfulness, meditation. And so, like, to hear it from someone who's lived it, who's done it. Thank you so much for joining us today, giving us that insight. I will be doing one of your classes, so I'll have to get on your calendar next, and then I'll do a review on that and let you know how that's had an impact on me. So I can't wait to do that. But before we cut out here, I was hoping you could just run us through how to find your services, and if anyone that's listening to this really enjoyed what they heard, how they could reach out to you.
I would say if you go to my nonprofit's website, it's midtownyogakc.org. And you can contact me there. I send out, from my journaling sessions, I send out daily text messages of what I've thought, sometimes thought-provoking. Some guys call them Jedi mind tricks, because these guys I send them out at 7 a.m. Central Time. And these guys are like, Kerry, I haven't been able to work and focus on work all day because of the question you asked me at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, I don't know how to answer it. So if you want that, you get that. And then occasionally I'll send out some YouTube. The other one is YouTube. If you just search for Kerry, Kerry, last name Steuart, Steuart. And if you just Google that name, you'll find a lot of my history, a lot of my journey, a lot of my path as well, of things that I've done for the community in Kansas City, and a lot of the affiliates and ways to connect. So the easiest way, really, I would just say, if you search for Kerry, Kerry, last name Steuart, Steuart, you'll find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, the news, whatever it may be.
Awesome, man. I'm just getting started. There's so much more information on you than I realized. I start clicking through all the links and I'm like, dang, this guy's just getting after it. So thank you so much, Kerry. We appreciate you, man.